What's happening? We're back with more of the Anonymous. I'm Lauren, Adrian with me as always, and today we are joined by a very, very special guest. Robbi is here. Robbi, how are you?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you?
Oh, ready to rock and roll, ready to dive in. So excited to be able to talk to you today because you had such a pivotal position in this first few episodes of The Anonymous. So with that going on, I mean, tell us, how did you get into this? Where did it start?
So I'm a poker player, and I feel like for whatever reason, a lot of these game shows love us. So I've been offered several other different type of game show opportunities as well. I was looking at others, and this one really stood out to me because of obviously like the skill sets that it takes to kind of be good and excel in this game. I sort of have in the environment that I'm in. So, like the kind of playing the double standards, a lot of the bluffing aspect of it. So I was really excited about this. It was also really intriguing to me that it's a brand new show, and it's always kind of fun to be the guinea pig of like a new series that starts that could potentially become like a multiple season type of thing. So that part was kind of cool. I also knew that would be a disadvantage because we didn't have like a gold standard to kind of look towards and to see how to do it better, because I and all the castmates were even discussing this, that we all knew that, the seasons 2, 3, and 4 would look to us to see how to do things better. And of course, it was a very new concept, but what really stood out to me was like the deception factor, the, leading a double life type of thing. And I just thought I had the skill sets to win the whole thing.
Right on. I mean, you said it all right there. I was so intrigued watching you play because there were so many different elements that you ran into, because you're kind of hiding who you are, because Dice, you hear about Dice all the time, a lot of in your conversations with other people, and you see your facial expression. How do I play that off? How was that, just hearing Dice constantly being talked about?
Yeah, I didn't realize how uncomfortable I looked until I saw it back. Like there was moments, and I don't know if it's the camera caught me in like these really uncomfortable moments where they were talking about Dice. And I think that if I was to do it again, I would do a better job of trying to like conceal myself a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't realize like how absolutely uncomfortable I looked. So it made me laugh a little bit. It was almost hard to watch back, but it was an interesting thing because there was a lot of my fans already that currently exist in the poker world that are like, that was such a dumb handle to pick, Robbi. Everyone knows that's who you are. And I'm like, did you guys not watch the rest of the episode? I never disclosed that I was a professional poker player. And they're like, oh, and I'm like, that's why I picked Dice. So I thought it was always really fun that I picked that, especially if no one really knew. And I knew right then that maybe nobody did know who I was, because I was very concerned about that, especially with Marcel being a gamer. And in the gamer world, like a lot of us kind of know each other, whether it's like the video gaming world versus the poker world. So I picked that because it was kind of like an inside joke type of thing. And I loved that people thought we're talking about it all the time, but it made me very uncomfortable. And I didn't really realize how uncomfortable I looked until I was watching some of the scenes back. And I'm like trying to look aloof. And I don't know if that kind of gave it away too a little bit, but it was, I still am really surprised that I didn't become the Anonymous when everyone thought I was Tyrina at that point. Mm-hmm. So there's obviously still like 1 or 2 people that put me together as Dice, and they were right. So it was really fun. I think the best part about leaving, or actually my exit, was being able to disclose that. It was almost like a weight had been lifted off, because I really wanted to just get it out that I wasn't who I came off to be. So.
No, I absolutely adore that. Now, one thing that we did notice is that there were a couple of instances where you were going into the Anonymous room and you were like, okay, I'm just going to chill. I'm going to be low key. And then lo and behold, I don't know if it was editing or whatever, boom, you were in chat. You were talking. You were letting the bullets fly. Was that something that like just got away from you, or was that something you were kind of like consciously, intentionally doing?
You know what? I wasn't consciously doing it. I just had such a hard time trying. There was one scene that you see where I'm like, oh, Robbi isn't safe anymore, which anyone that knows me was like, why did you say that? It was such a dead giveaway. And looking back on it, I can see why it was a dead giveaway. But for whatever reason, it was really hard for me to remain quiet. And I think that would be the one little element that I would change. And I do say that near the end, where I'm just like, I'm going to say less as my new handle. Unfortunately, I didn't get an opportunity to play that handle very long. Mm-hmm. But I did recognize that maybe saying too much gave away a lot of like who I was, especially once Tyrina was eliminated and she disclosed that she was Truck, that I knew that people were associating me with Dice. So that if I went back in there and I was speaking too much, they would associate that with as being Robbi. So I knew I had to change things a little bit, but it was really difficult for me to remain quiet. I think that was the most fun that I had, was like saying whatever I wanted behind the closed doors. So to play like the kind of like edge that I think that Wayne kind of played, just like he said nothing, wasn't ever going to be me. So that was the most fun I had, was like really my mind and really feel this.
So you bring Tyrina up because that's the whole point of everything. So everyone thinks that Tyrina, some people still think you are associated with Dice. Tyrina then leaves. Then boom, we get the new handles. How excited were you to hear new handles? Because I bet you were pretty worried that the person that was in front of you as your defense is now out of the game.
I knew my cover was completely blown when Tyrina left. So there was that kind of like really uncomfortable feeling. So whereas other people weren't that excited about their handle changes, I really was excited. What I wasn't excited about were new people coming in. So I think I made that pretty obvious. I think I made it even more obvious than was aired. I really wasn't excited about the new people coming in because I knew that was going to throw everything for a loop, especially since some of the primary questions that they were asking were like, who's the biggest threat in the house? And you could tell that the strategy there would be, if they were to be given the opportunity to be the anonymous, would probably be kind of rooting for like the better players in the house to get eliminated. And I knew that there was a really high chance that they would be the anonymous, being brand new players and having that authority, because we really couldn't associate them with a personality. And it happened so fast that they sort of showed up to the house and suddenly we had another challenge.
Mm-hmm. So going by your threat level, because obviously that was your entire story arc, everything kind of started crumbling in the first challenge. Walk me through that first challenge and your decisions there.
You know, I really wish that the first challenge happened a little bit later. And I remember thinking like it was such a difficult concept because you want to be safe and you want to contribute the most to the prize pool. So I was like, I just did the very best that I could do. I didn't think that it would outshine others so much in the sense that I would be kind of targeted right off the bat. But first impressions are everything when it comes to games like this. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that very first challenge just put a target on my back right away. And there was really nothing I could do about it. So all I could really hope for was that the person that was voted as the anonymous kind of looked at the contribution factor of what the people that were more stronger in the household were contributing as far as the prize pool was concerned, as opposed to like a threat factor. I knew that near the end, even after our alliances were formed, that we would have to be competing with each other. So I just wanted us to all get there, like the stronger competitors. And I know that if I was the anonymous, I would have kind of been like rooting for like the more weaker players to get off. But I do see the concept that it is two pronged. So it's those that either felt like they needed to get rid of the competition, or those that felt that they needed to get rid of the weaker link, so to speak. For me, I would have gone for the weaker opponent, but I can see where others would have really been gunning for like the higher, like more threatening castmates to go first. And unfortunately, I feel like it was a perfect storm of things that happened for the day that I was eliminated. You know, I only had one vote. Thanks, Dylan. But had I not gotten that, and Victoria was the one, I really think I would have made it really, really far. And that's just the unfortunate thing, is that it happened to be Victoria who found me as like a number one threat, and I kind of already knew that. And then also happened to be the fact that I had just one vote, and these are new people, and all they were hearing about was who the biggest threats were in the house. So not surprised that I got eliminated at that point. And I kind of had a feeling it was her when it happened, especially since like one at a time, it was like Andy, when Andy was saved, you can kind of see it in my face. They kind of show it. I just kind of knew it was going to be me. So I was like already like preparing for my exit speech. Because when Andy was gone, I was like, oh, the person that is the anonymous is getting rid of the biggest threat, not the weakest link.
Mm-hmm. Would you change anything?
But there was obviously those that contribute a little bit more to the prize pool than others. That's obviously very evident. So there's no argument there.
For sure. Now, would you change your strategy going in if you were to play again?
I would say less as my handle. But I think that there's at the very last like kind of like handle, not the handle when we were back in there in the chat rooms that we did in our hideouts. There was a strategy among some of the players to say a lot less. And in fact, Wayne didn't say anything at all. And that really irked me a little bit, because I felt like part of the game was to be vocal as in our hideouts. So I feel like I kind of compensated for that by maybe saying too much. But it really, that one kind of like rubbed me off the wrong way too. I felt like you came here to play a game, so play the game.
Mhm.
And I didn't think that part of playing the game was not to play the game. And I see how that could be a strategy, but I didn't appreciate that there was silence in the chat rooms. Although looking back at it now, I can see how that's an advantage. If that is permitted, I would have said a lot less.
Yeah, well, and if it's permitted, you can say a lot less. But if everybody employs the same strategy, you don't have a game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. And so I vocalize that very clearly. So I don't know if that would be changed moving forward. But I will say, like, there's certain things that I can't change. Like, I wouldn't do worse in the challenges, or like do worse in the memory challenge, because I did get saved that day. There really is no way of saying, like, how do you appear to be less of a threat? That's like a hard thing to kind of be rooting for when you do these type of things. I think the only thing I would say is, like, just focus on the controllables. And for me, the controllable would have been to say a little bit less, just so that I could be voted and get a better shot at being the anonymous, and work on my strategy from that angle, as opposed to like appearing as a weaker link.
Right on. Can you talk about the pace a little bit and how you navigate that? Simply because we know you get it's normally one night for every elimination, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas most games that you see, it's not typically like that. You get a little bit more time. Whereas this, you have to jump right in and create those relationships and bonds rather quickly.
Yeah. We had very long days, and it felt like we knew each other a lot more than I think comes off. So it's crazy because, like, we really didn't get much downtime. And for us, we were just like, it was on the go constantly, right? Even like when the new people came, we were exhausted from that whole day. And that was kind of part of the show, was like the stress factor that was put into it, that we were playing these two different sides, as well as like a lot of hours of filming going on into it. And I just felt like it kind of made it more interesting, because it kind of brought out the stress levels a little bit more. And you could see where people were incapable of like controlling their emotions, when there was like, like lack of sleep, and like the high stress factor, and like the vast unknown of like new people coming in, handle change happening. So I think that was part of the show in its entirety. And I feel like because of that, we just got to know each other a lot more. So it feels like it moves really fast, but the hours felt a lot longer. And I don't know how to explain that, but I feel like I got to know my castmates a lot more than it maybe comes off as when you look at the show.
Yeah, it's kind of like being thrown into a pressure cooker.
Yeah, right. And so like every minute matters. And it felt like and you could see it, like we had cameras around us all the time. That's just how filming is. Every angle, everything you do kind of like works for or against you. So everything kind of mattered. So we're always on the edge of our seats and making sure that we're presenting ourselves the way we wanted to be presented. But of course, there was times when you kind of like lost it a little bit, because there's a lot of pressure going on. Some people didn't like the change. Some people just didn't like the long hours. Some people just didn't like, obviously, the two sides. Like you could see there was a lot of people that realized that just wasn't them. They weren't good at playing like a double life type of thing. And so that kind of made them fall apart a little bit. And for me, I kind of just unleashed it in my hideouts.
I love that.
That's awesome. What was your favorite part of the experience?
I think it was a challenge of like the unknown, and just being in like a remote area with random people that I knew nothing about. I kind of wanted to challenge myself in the sense of like, how can you grow with a community of people with absolutely zero access to the outside world, and just see like if you can kind of thrive in that type of environment. So there's a lot I learned about myself. I learned that I can be out in the wilderness with random people and kind of just do my very best. I really enjoyed it. I didn't realize how strong I would be day upon day. I really like the high stress environment, but I'm already in that environment to begin with. And I love the competitive side of it. Like one of the main reasons I even took on the show is because of the competitive nature behind it. Because people always ask me, would you ever do any type of reality thing again? And for me, I would, if it was based on, I mean, if you're going to follow my life, that's one thing, but any other reality show would have to have a competitive side to it. Because that's, I think, what kind of like was really thrilling for me, and what kind of drove me to keep going.
For sure. And it was great watching that journey and you play. Like to see somebody who is a professional gamer such as yourself be able to experience a brand new and define a metagame. I think it was fascinating to watch. So thank you so much for coming on the show and doing that.
Glad you guys were entertained. And
I'm sorry. My one question is, okay, so you put up Xavier on your last episode. If you were to get the anonymous, would you have eliminated him?
Of course not. No, that was a total No. So like that was one
Diversion.
thing I kind of recognized is that you wanted to kind of like throw people off your handle a little bit. And people knew that my relationship with him, as far as like the alliance was concerned and just friendship value, I just connected with him right away. So I didn't think for the life of me that anyone would associate Rocket with being me if I put him up. It was either going to be like him or Nina. I remember kind of debating between that a little bit.
Mhm.
And I didn't, and realizing now I did actually put him at risk. So because if unfortunately the anonymous person at that moment is somebody that's trying to get rid of a threat, that probably wouldn't be the best strategy or the best move. But I also saw that like I did think that I would probably be nominated at least once, which I was. So I thought that like a lot of like the stronger contenders would be nominated, and I didn't think I would be the only one nominating him. So I just kind of wanted to throw everybody off my handle when I voted for him. And I was relieved that somebody else had nominated for him, because had it only been me and then he got eliminated, I would have felt horrible, of course. But it was really just to throw people off my handle. And that was the first time I kind of did that, because before I was kind of picking Lily, and I kind of stayed with Lily. I wasn't really gunning for her the whole time to leave. I just stayed with her because I thought the consistency might be one thing, where like I didn't want any changes so people didn't kind of connect the dots as to who I might be. But I was going to just keep picking like who I thought was maybe a weaker player in the house. But I really just kind of threw it for a loop and thought about it again and reevaluated my strategy and thought maybe I'm going to pick somebody that nobody would think that I would pick. And therefore I can kind of throw them off my handle. So I don't know if it worked. I guess we didn't find out long enough because I didn't stick with it long enough. But
Hey, whatever works. Yeah. So if you had become the anonymous that week,
I would have never picked him.
who would you have gotten rid of?
One of the weaker players, because that was my strategy. I really kind of was looking at who was contributing the most to the prize pool. And ultimately, I would have wanted to get the full $100,000 if I made it to the very end. So I think I love Andy, but I probably would have gotten rid of Andy at that point.
Oh,
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. As soon as you started saying that, I'm like, oh, I think that's Andy.
Yeah. I think it would have been Andy, and I love him, and he knows everything's good, all in good. And ultimately, I feel like we all recognize that it was a game. So I hope that there are no hard feelings as far as. I feel like everyone's how they're rationalizing how the anonymous handles that have already been exposed, how they're rationalizing who they removed from the house. Is they have good reason behind it. So for me, my reason would just be lack of contribution as far as the prize pool is concerned.
Okay.
Right. And everyone has their reasons. And so it's just whatever works best for you and how you're going to do well in the game. And you did play very well. It was super fun to watch you. You were playing hard. And I really appreciate that as a viewer, because you were there to play 110%, no matter what the outcome became.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. I thought so too. I was vocal from both ends. I actually was a little bit more subdued in the real world and more vocal in my hideout. So, everyone had a different strategy, and that was mine.
Yeah, right on.
Love it.
Robbi, thank you so much for joining Adrian and myself. We were so happy that you said yes to coming on this. It's so good to hear insight from the game, because we don't see everything. And so when you guys come on and talk to us about it, then we can get the full picture.
Yeah. I loved sharing this moment with you guys, and I hope you guys keep watching, see who wins the whole thing, and hopefully there'll be another season so we can see how people do it better.
Absolutely. Build on the meta.
Yeah, right?
There you go. Well, thank you so much again, Robbi.